No dirty talk, just podcasts. No turn-ons, so turn me on. By that I mean this podcast. I'm not interested, so don't date me. Review me, just rate me. Like, subscribe, don't date me. Review me, just rate me. Like, subscribe, don't date me. Don't date me. Don't date me. Don't date me. Alexa, play the podcast Don't Date Me.
Okay, speaking of which, follow us on Instagram at @itsjamiesparks and Twitter at @itsjamiesparks.
Wait, is it?
At @itsjamiesparks.
Don't date me. Don't date me. Don't date me. Don't date me.
Hey, I'm Jamie, a 37-year-old, 6'4", bisexual man and closeted Christian. I enjoy long hikes and I want to meet your mum. And everyone thinks that I have a moustache because of the artist Dali. But as I twiddle my moustache, I'm going to twiddle it at you. It's like really triggering ASMR. That's the left side. And that's the right side. I'm just picturing Lindsay listening to this episode now because she hates people whispering at her. And so I might do it every so often. Anyway, from the hit TV show Community, that is who Abed is. And if you don't know who he is, then get in the bin. But this truly, my friends, is the darkest timeline.
No dirty talk, just podcasts. No turn-ons, so turn me on. By that I mean this podcast. I'm not interested, so don't date me. Review me, just rate me. Like, subscribe, don't date me. Review me, just rate me. Like, subscribe, don't date me. Don't date me. Don't date me. Don't date me. Alexa, play the podcast Don't Date Me.
Okay, speaking of which, follow us on Instagram at @itsjamiesparks and Twitter at @itsjamiesparks.
Wait, is it?
At @itsjamiesparks.
Don't date me. Don't date me. Don't date me. Don't date me. Don't date me.
Okay, so I appreciate that might be a bit much, maybe too much, just too much, really. Just rein it in, I feel. But also, I don't know, I just feel this is why I don't think I could ever be like a pop star producer, like for the latest hit records, because see, when it came to the reverb, I was like, more reverb. Yeah, so thanks, Chris, for that. It was so fun. Do you know what the best thing is that's not even the whole thing, my friends. There is in fact verses to that as well, but that's a story for another time. Now, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate all your support, and thank you again for the reviews that are coming in, which is nice. And even for the people that aren't leaving public reviews, like people that are sending us messages, it's cute. We like it. We appreciate it. Sarah is not here, and in fact, nobody is here right now except me, because this, my friends, is going to be the most personal podcast I have ever made. It's almost like a throwback to when I was doing radio stuff back in the day, which is kind of weird, gonna be honest. But this week's episode is a pure belter, as we say in Scotland. That's right, I'm coming live, but not live. to you from my living room in Scotland, specifically in Paisley. So if you don't know where that is, you can just really look it up on the internet. So to start off the podcast, if you're new to us, by the way, side note, welcome. Where have you been? We have been waiting for you for at least 4 episodes. Well, 3. This is now 4. And and this one is going to be a little bit different because it is just me. But it's going to be necessary to get feedback after it. So if you make your whole way through this whole episode, then get back in touch and give me a holler at It's Jamie Sparks on Twitter. And yeah, let me know your thoughts because we're in this journey together. Now, speaking of which, I just wanted to do our most necessary feature of our podcast show, which is Clarification Corner. Now, this, my friends, is because we are kind of winging it. We're just doing this for fun. And from time to time, because we're all super ignorant, me and Sarah more so than anyone else, and also myself, mostly, we feel it's necessary just to each week just kind of clarify some things. So I've got a small list this week, and I'm excited to say that this week's Clarification Corner is not all mine, which I'm excited about. So the first one is mine, actually, because I actually went back and listened to all the early episodes just to kind of like gauge how we're doing, I guess. On the first episode, I kind of gave you some background about me, and I said about my high school experience. So I just wanted to clarify, because I feel like I didn't really articulate myself specifically. So I'm going to be a bit specific. So basically, the reason why I've made peace with my high school bullying experiences is literally because I tackled it head on through counselling and therapy, like full on. So that's the only reason why I've kind of been able to move on from that. So just to be specific and clear, we here at Don't Date Me endorse taking care of your mental health and well-being. And as Sarah would say, diet. Now, speaking of Sarah, she did actually want to specify, because one of the episodes I listened back to, she said a fact that I didn't know, or maybe I didn't know and I forgot. But ultimately, she did in fact dance with Kate Moss. What? And specifically in the Pale Moonlight. I don't know. I need to, again, get clarification as to what this Pale Moonlight thing is. Is this a song reference that I'm not getting? I do not know. But anyway. So she did dance next to Kate Moss at a gig. And literally danced with her. So that's exciting. I don't know whether she means dance with her or at her. There's definitely a distinction. And I'm not sure if she's willing to actually make that. But we'll find out. Also, from a kind of like public health service perspective, which Chris kind of alluded to, just to be specific, COVID-19 is cured by vaccines, as we all agree on this show, and hopefully you do too, because if you don't, please unsubscribe. Actually, don't unsubscribe, just keep subscribed, stay right there, but just change your opinion, thank you. Your opinion is valid, but it's not right. Sorry. But just to be specific, COVID is not cured by yoga and well-wishing, and I just want to be super clear about that. Lindsay, though, who was on last week's episode, has no apologies about anything she has ever said in her life, but more specifically on last week's episode. But she did message me and said that she wants to clarify that David's shirt from Schitt's Creek was in fact designed by Alexander McQueen, and I need to clarify that mine definitely was not. So there you go. So on this week's episode, we're going to be discussing sexual health and well-being, and I'll be telling you about my personal experiences, and also we're going to be telling you later on about an exciting competition to win 2 tickets to see Rina Sawayama when she comes to Glasgow in October. But first, it is Pride Month this month, and people are celebrating it all around the world, so let's discuss something that's impacted billions of people all around the world. But before we deep dive into this subject, I just want to give a massive shout out to Michael and the admins for the PrEP Facts Rethinking HIV Prevention and Sex Facebook group. You can actually find that at facebook.com/groups/PrEP Facts because they have being a good support, giving me some good information, and are going to be listening to the show to give feedback, which is necessary because obviously this has been quite extensively researched, this episode. So hopefully Clarification Corner next week will be empty. I hope, fingers crossed, but we'll see how we get on. So let's do it. Sorry, I'm just going to have a quick sip of a vanilla of French drink variety in a cup from the shop Fop, which I used to work for. Delicious. And that was some ASMR for you. Here's some more, Lindsay. I'm touching. How is that? I need to not do that because that's not okay. Okay. Right, let's go for it. We're going to discuss sexual health. And I think, just for a bit of clarity, like the reason why we're doing this is because just the last couple of episodes we talked about different lifestyle choices that some people don't really know lots about and don't understand. And so I feel it's really important, just generally speaking, to kind of be open and transparent about the other side of it. Like the fact that you can't just like run around doing what you want and then be like, nothing affects me, there's no repercussions for anything. Like that's not how life works. Like we all know this. I know that's the unfun part, but like, yeah, this is going to be super interesting. So especially when we're going to look more kind of closer to home. And when I say that, I mean my own experiences. So let us discuss HIV. So this information is from the Terence Higgins Trust website, which is a UK-based charity. So HIV stands for Human Immunodeficiency Virus. Immunodeficiency refers to the weakening of the immune system by the virus. HIV has been passed on between humans for many decades, but it was only identified in the 1980s. Now, there's a lot of kind of like confusion still. I don't know why, but there is a lot of confusion still between HIV and AIDS, and like people think they're the same thing, and they're not always one linear path to AIDS either. But anyway, so what's AIDS then, I hear you ask? So AIDS stands for Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome. It's a collection of illnesses caused by a virus people pick up or acquire that makes their immune system weak. So immunodeficiency, that's where that part comes from. And you can't get AIDS you can't get AIDS unless you've already been diagnosed as HIV positive. But it's important to note that people who do have HIV don't always end up with AIDS because of the miracle of medicine, to be quite honest. But that could be a subject for later. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of background information about, you know, the history, because I think it's really important, because this is Pride Month. It's super tempting to like don some hot pants, maybe, I don't know, wear some face paint, defiantly wave your flag of choice and go to a parade that may be sponsored by large corporations, or I don't know, just sit at home with your friends, your chosen family, and have banter. But I think it's really important to remember the history of what got us here, because that's kind of the point, or should be, some would say, of Pride, question mark, not question mark, actually full stop. Okay, so basically this information here is from hiv.gov, which is a US website. So it's literally 5 points, and it's just so that you kind of see, well, so it's basically so I could see more than anything the kind of history of the journey that we've all gone on, because we've just kind of gone through a pandemic, but we so quickly forget like what we experienced because we don't want to remember it. And I think it can be the same thing with this history right here. So in 1981, which was 4 years before I was born, on June 5th, the US Centre for Disease Control published an article describing cases of a rare lung infection in 5 young, previously healthy gay men in Los Angeles. And that basically marked the first kind of record of, well, from this website's perspective anyway, of the AIDS crisis, basically. Flash forward to 1985, the same year I was born, but a few months before. So on January the 11th, 1985, the CDC revises the AIDS case definition to note that AIDS is caused by a newly identified virus, and CDC also issues provisional guidance for blood screening as well to kind of like cope with the pressures that the healthcare system was starting to face. And then on May the 1st, the same month that I was born in, the first play about AIDS that made Broadway opened, and the plot focused on a gay couple who broke up, but when one of them develops AIDS, their partner comes back to take care of them, as is. And the play gets excellent reviews and runs for 285 performances. I didn't know that, and I kind of am curious to see it, and I'm kind of hoping at some point soon someone somewhere is doing productions of it, because that would be cool. Maybe they already are and I'm just not aware of it, but if they are, get in touch. Okay, fast forward further. On, I think it's in the year 2020, on July the 23rd, leaders of the G8 group, that's the group of countries that come together to kind of like run the world, I guess, question mark. Well, that's going to be in the clarification corner next week. The summit basically releases a statement acknowledging the need for additional HIV and AIDS resources. So this is like, we've gone all the way through the AIDS crisis in the 80s, and yet even in, you know, the 2000s, you know, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the US all recognised that more resources were still required, which is, it just blows my mind. But anyway, and then if we fast forward all the way to June the 5th, 2021, the world marked 40 years since the first 5 cases of what later became known as AIDS were officially reported. And yeah, and so that's really the history of that. Okay, so now I'm going back to my mug for another wee sip. God, this is a deep dive. This is a different dynamic. Do you know, I have to say, like, doing a podcast is different from doing a radio show, like, legit. And also because there's not the factor of time involved, because it's a bit more chill, which I kind of appreciate. I like the fact that I'm not looking at a clock thinking, oh my God, I need to do news in 5 seconds. But also it's that way where it's a different dynamic depending on how many people are there, I've noticed as well, which is really fun. So yeah, if you've never done a podcast before, definitely look into doing one, because it's really interesting. It's interesting, like, especially if you listen to loads. But anyway, here we go. Moving on. So that's kind of like the background knowledge. Now, it would be so easy for me to have not done that, because it would have made my life easy. It meant I wouldn't have had to research stuff for 3 hours and print out documents from the government from like multiple sources, and then try and rope in health care providers to get in touch and stuff. So, but I wanted to do this properly. So there we go. And okay, and now we're going to go to another factor. So I'm going to twiddle my mustache. Here we go. You ready for it? We're going to discuss something that I feel like you'd have to like be really unaware if you're part of the gay community or regard yourself, you know, LGBTQ plus, etc., to not be aware of what PrEP is. I feel like we get it. Do you know what I mean? I feel like some of us still don't understand it in terms of integrating it into our lives, and it's not for everyone, granted. But I feel like the general population of the world do not understand what's happening. So I just feel like we should start a conversation. So don't think of this as like a source of information. Please, for the love of merciful Zeus, this is not a source of information. We are not authorities on any of these subject matters. But think of this as more of like a launch pad to a conversation that you can have with your friends or family. And in terms of PrEP stands for pre-exposure prophylaxis. Yes, I did it right, kind of. I'll say it faster. Pre-exposure prophylaxis. prophylaxis. How can doctors say that fast? How do they? I can't even. Anyway, moving on. So this is the name given to medicines that can be taken by someone who is HIV negative to reduce their risk of becoming infected with HIV. PrEP is one of several ways of reducing sexual transmission of HIV, such as condom use or changes in behaviour. And PrEP medication should be considered as just one component of wider interventions to prevent HIV transmission. And just as a side note, if you're interested, because I'm doing this from like a Scottish perspective, which is part of the United Kingdom, PrEP medication has been available on the National Health Service by prescription in Scotland since July 2017. Now, I don't think that's the same as all areas of the UK. I may be wrong. And that's where I'm ignorant, because I only really pay attention to what's happening in Scotland, to be honest. But if you want more information from, if you're in Scotland, then visit www.prep.scotland. And just to be transparent as well, that information there was from the guidance for Sandiford staff on HIV pre-exposure prophylaxis. Yep, I read a 35-page document. It was exhausting. You're welcome. Okay, so now we're kind of going to like the point of this episode. So if you've made it to this point, then you've passed the test. Well done. This is the part which is not salacious. It's just my story. And so essentially, I don't know, the way I look at it, like 4 or 5 years ago, a friend of mine said they were going to go on PrEP. And I'll be really honest with you, like at the time, my initial response was literally just have less sex. And I actually said that. I said, have less sex, have safer sex, and also why don't you wear a condom? And it's that way where, yes, but also, what if you're drunk? What if you forget? What if something unexpected happens? And also, like 5 years later, I'm sitting here thinking, who was I to judge my friends for being honest about that and wanting to do that? So, friend, you know who you are. I am sorry. I was wrong. But flash forward 5 years and I found myself, I found myself in a polyamorous open relationship, which was unexpected, and I found myself making an appointment to discuss PrEP with my local sexual health clinic. For me, where I'm at now, because I'm not in that situation now, but I decided that I wanted to be sexually active, but I also wanted to be socially responsible, especially coming out of lockdown and the pandemic and all that. So really for me, it wasn't about anything other than logistics. Because anyone that knows me knows I'm really strategic in terms of career stuff, in terms of like family stuff, relationships. Like I'm always thinking of the wider picture, or trying to at least. And I see why I do that. It's like a self-defense mechanism, but it's also because I like to try and be considerate of other people. So yes, I wore a mask the whole way through the pandemic. And yes, during lockdown, I literally sat in my flat on my own and I was celibate for 2 years. You're welcome. And I don't say that as like a kind of like bragging thing. I'm just saying it to be transparent because, we joke about things and yeah, it was a time. But also, it was a time. I had a great time during lockdown, just saying, all myself. Oh my God, I'm going to edit that part out. Anyway, we're losing the plot. Where's the plot? It's right here. Okay, so really for me, it was about logistics, and also more specifically about doing what was right for my own personal sexual health. Now, I've been really lucky to the point where my friends get annoyed with me because I had never had an STI at all. Not one. Nothing at all. All throughout my adolescence, all throughout my 20s. Basically because I'm such a control freak and because I'm so cautious. Because even remember in last week's episode where Lindsay was joking about, we were making that joke about sanitized models are the only people that can date me. I mean, it's not untrue. I'm quite selective, I'm going to say. But I have to say, these things happen. And unfortunately, in my 30s, I did catch an STI. It wasn't anything super serious, and it wasn't anything that, dramatically impacted my life. But the trouble was that it did actually happen during an abusive relationship. And so effectively, one of my exes attempted to gaslight me into thinking that I had given them the STI. And they also lied about it, and they tried to make me feel bad about it. But here's the thing. I knew that I hadn't, and I knew because I'm sexually responsible. I keep a diary. Again, I'm a control freak, I know. So I always knew that I hadn't, and literally I joked about it with my friends, just like I did last week with Lindsay on the podcast. So needless to say, that relationship did not last long. But do you know what? I'm still glad I met them. I'm still glad they were part of my life. And that's taken me a good long while to be able to say that out loud. And now I'm saying it on the internet. So that's a decision. But there you go. And you know what? If it wasn't for that awful situation, I wouldn't be on my current journey of self-improvement and self-discovery. And I wouldn't be doing counselling, which I'm doing at the moment. And I wouldn't be on this long-term therapy plan, which will be starting at some point soon as well. So yeah. And to be quite honest, like, this podcast probably would not exist if it wasn't for that person. So thank you. But also, goodbye. Vitally though, what I want you, listener, to know about my personal experience is how my local sexual health clinic helped me. And to be completely transparent with you, this was my personal experience. Other people have different experiences and different opinions, but ultimately what I received was care, compassion, and also it was within a judge-free or judgment-free environment. And, if anything, they encouraged me to explore my sexual identity, to make healthier life choices, and to ask for help when it was needed the most. So, if you're in Scotland, and you need to, contact Scotland's Domestic Abuse and Forced Marriages Helpline. Their phone number is open 24/7, and the number is 0800 027 1234. That's 0800 027 1234. Their appointments for the telephone are 30 minutes long, and they are trained professionals, and they can help you. And if you want to contact the Men's Advice Line, you can phone 0808 801 0327. And also see if you just want to have a chat with someone, regardless of where you are within the United Kingdom, whether that be Ireland. Northern Ireland. Oh, that'll be on Corrections Corner next week. Great. If you're in Northern Ireland, if you're in England, Wales, Scotland, and other places as well, then feel free to phone the Samaritans. Their phone number is 116 123. And that's just if you want to have a chat, because sometimes you just need to have a chat with someone. And do you know what I've realised? It's not until you talk to someone outside of the situation, and also someone who's not even a friend or family member, that it can help you gain clarity. And that's why therapy is important. Okay, and also for our American friends in the US, I would encourage you to check out the American Sexual Health Association's website. It is ASHA sexualhealth.org. And also a website that is really valuable for anyone in the world to visit is hivrisk.cdc.gov. That's hivrisk.cdc.gov. And I'll tell you why. It's because it shows you how at risk you are to HIV. And what's really fascinating to me is the fact that whilst I was preparing this episode, and I'm saving this bit for right now after we've done all the information dump, and we've done my personal story, because Lindsay was really interested to hear this part. Most people I spoke to when I was preparing for this episode, any heterosexual person that I spoke to had a very different response when it came to sexual health matters, A lot of people I spoke to have never gone to a sexual health clinic, even though they've been sexually active for years. And that really surprised me. Did it surprise me? It did surprise me. Yeah, I was surprised, because I think when you're part of the LGBTQ plus community, you start to kind of like perceive necessities differently, whether that be human rights, whether that be employment laws, whether that be sexual health services. You see it differently because you are at a disadvantage. You are in a higher risk group. And so, yeah, so I'd really challenge you to like challenge yourself on it. And if you're sitting there thinking, if you're like shouting at your phone going, Jamie, shut up, why are you? Do you know what I mean? And so this website's really great because it shows you the cold hard stats. So we're going to go into the actual like mechanics of this, right? So this is going to make people so uncomfortable. So in preparation for that, I'm going to twiddle my moustache again. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm actually reading these stats out. Here we go. Here's some examples from this website. Receptive anal sex with PrEP is about 99 times less risky. So it's 99 times less risky to have anal sex with PrEP. Also, we're being super specific. We're going for it. We're going for the mechanics. This is making some people very awkward and very uncomfortable. Maybe also me. For insertive anal sex, that's what we call in the queer community as a top. So if you're a top and you're wearing a condom and you're on PrEP, it's actually 269 times less risky to get HIV, which is crazy. And lastly, if you're receptive, as we say in the LGBTQ plus community, and also some heterosexual people who like to participate, if you're a bottom, anal sex with a condom and PrEP is about 356 times less risky. So PrEP medication can literally save lives, and it does. So it's really important to educate people on that and talk about it and normalize it, because people are still dying of HIV. We've just gone through a pandemic. It's been 2 years. The vaccine was made, multiple vaccines were made insanely fast. But thousands and millions of people around the world are still dying of this. That doesn't seem right. And we have to ask ourselves, why is that? But anyway, also, lastly, in Canada, you can call the access line on 1-888-642-2725. That's 1-888-642-2725. And if you're wondering what that is, the access line is a 7-day-a-week toll-free confidential phone line, and you can actually text it as well. And it's available for questions about sexual health, pregnancy options, abortion, and also safer sex. So thus really concludes this week's episode. So ultimately, in conclusion, we've all got different perspectives and opinions. That is the nature of being human. We're never going to all agree on everything, as we all have learned in the last 5 years. It's been a time, guys. It's been a time. However, it is Pride Month all across the world, and also, not just that, but this year marks the 50th year of Pride. So, my friends, in my humble opinion, as a 37-year-old bisexual, closeted Christian, gay man, throwing that in there now, great, that'll be on Corrections Corner next week. Pride should be a protest, because it was, and it is, and it shall continue to be. So take action, and you can take action by doing the following things: be an ally, know your HIV status, take ownership of your sexual health and well-being. Those are the 3 things that, if anything, I want you to take away from this episode. It's those: be an ally, know your HIV status, and take ownership of your sexual health. Side notes, if you're not even comfortable going to a sexual health clinic, and I get why, because it's not a fun time always, you can actually do home tests, and there's actually some available for free. You can go to the Terrace Higgins website to order those, And also you can pay for them if you want to support their charity work as well. So know your status, people. Know your status. So thank you for listening to my TED Talk. I hope it wasn't preachy. Chris always says, don't make it preachy. I really hope it wasn't, because ultimately this is... I wanted to read into this more for my own journey as well, to kind of understand the wider context of my community that I am part of. So yeah. Okay. Twiddling the moustache. This marks the end of the awkward part of the podcast. I wasn't that awkward, I guess. But anyway, next week is exciting because for next week's episode, Sarah is returning. Yeah. And we're going to explore the joys and, my friends, the horrors of dating apps. Heaven help us. So we're going to be exploring the delights such as Grindr, Hinge, is that one? Scruff, Tinder, and also Instagram. What? I hear you ask. We're also going to have a very special guest as well, which I am super excited about. Like, so super excited about that I just gestured wildly with my arms there. Also, before you go, as promised, if you want to win 2 tickets to see Rina Sawayama when she comes to Glasgow in October, all you need to do is head to the following website, soundcloud.com. It's Jamie Sparks. Yep, the URL is the same. It's the same on every platform. And follow the instructions. So that's... It sounds like I'm doing like some sort of top secret mission. And it kind of is. Because these tickets, you know, are going to be like gold dust when it comes to October. I wonder if it's actually sold out already. Let me find out. Do you know what? I'll find that out later. I can't board. But ultimately, I've got my ticket sorted and I've got your ticket sorted too. So if you want to come, go to soundcloud.com/it's Jamie Sparks. My advice to you is have fun, be creative, and if you are, and you impress Chris and Sarah, then you will be selected to win 2 tickets to see Rina Sawayama. Okay. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button right there in your favorite podcasting app. And whatever you do, don't date me. See you next week.